While Adolf Hitler ruled Germany with absolute control, a different kind of power lived quietly in the shadows, the women behind his most trusted men. They smiled at parties, wore diamonds at rallies, toasted victories. But behind that glamour lay a dark devotion. These women weren't just spectators. They were believers, partners in faith, mirrors of the poisoned ideology their husbands served. And when the Reich collapsed in 1945, their world didn't just fall apart, it burned. What happened to them afterward is a story as disturbing as the empire they helped glorify. Magda Goebbels, the First Lady of the Third Reich. Magda Goebbels. Her name alone drips with tragedy. She was called the Queen of the Nazi Party, Hitler's ideal of a German woman, elegant, loyal, utterly devoted. To many, she seemed perfect. To history, she became something else entirely. While her husband, Joseph Goebbels, shaped Hitler's propaganda machine, Magda shaped the image of domestic perfection. She smiled for cameras beside her 6 golden-haired children, symbols of the future the Nazis dreamed of. They were the model family of the Reich, beautiful, obedient, pure. But as April 1945 dawned and Soviet shells tore through Berlin, that perfect world turned to ash. The Goebbels family moved into the Führer bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery. The walls shook. Hitler was losing his mind. Around them, loyalists were swallowing cyanide, shooting themselves, or just waiting for the end. On April 30th, Hitler killed himself. The next day, Magda made her own choice. She refused to escape, refused to surrender. To her, life without National Socialism wasn't life at all. So she did something unthinkable. That night, as the children slept in their bunk beds, Magda and Joseph gave them morphine to knock them out. Then, one by one, they placed cyanide capsules in their mouths. Some say Magda kissed each forehead before pressing the poison between their teeth. Others say she couldn't even look. Minutes later, silence. 6 children gone, murdered by their own parents out of loyalty to a dead ideology. Afterward, Magda and Joseph walked upstairs into the garden of the Reich Chancellery. They swallowed poison, possibly shot themselves too, and collapsed beside each other. Their bodies were burned, just like Hitler's. In her final letters, Magda wrote that she couldn't imagine her children growing up in a world without Hitler. She called the end of the Reich the end of meaning itself. Even hardened SS officers were horrified. She was calm, one survivor recalled, too calm. Like it was a duty. The perfect wife of the Reich became the mother of death. Margaret Himmler, the loyal nurse. While Berlin burned, another woman was running, desperately trying to escape the ruins of her husband's empire. Margaret Himmler, wife of Heinrich Himmler, the man who commanded the SS and oversaw the Holocaust. She wasn't just any housewife. Before marrying, she'd been a nurse, disciplined, proud, a true believer in order and obedience. Letters from the 1930s reveal her admiration for Hitler, her pride in Heinrich's power. She bragged about their social circle, the privileges, the mansion life. Their daughter, Gudrun, born in 1929, was raised to adore her father. She even called him Pappy. He wrote her affectionate letters from concentration camps, describing them as wonderful places. When Germany fell, Heinrich tried to disappear. He dressed as a soldier under a fake name, Heinrich Hitzing, but the British caught him near Bremen in May 1945. When they realized who he was, he bit into a hidden cyanide capsule. Gone, just like that. Margaret, hiding in northern Italy, was captured days later. The Allies didn't see her as innocent. To them, she had supported, benefited, believed. She was imprisoned in several Allied camps, interrogated again and again. Her letters told enough. Her words praising Hitler, mocking enemy lies. She couldn't claim ignorance anymore. In 1948, a denazification court labeled her a major offender. She got 4 years in prison, counting the time already served. It wasn't execution, but it was the end of everything she'd known. When she was released, she vanished. Changed her name, lived quietly in Munich until her death in 1967. Her daughter never renounced the Nazi cause. She spent her life defending her father's memory, even running secret groups that helped ex-SS members. For Margaret, there was no redemption, only silence. Gerda Bormann, the invisible widow. Gerda Bormann's husband, Martin, was one of the most powerful men in Hitler's circle. He controlled access to the Führer, manipulated policy, whispered orders that destroyed lives. But he was always in the shadows, the puppet master few saw. When Hitler died, Bormann tried to flee Berlin. His last confirmed sighting was on May 2, 1945, near Loerder Station. After that, nothing. Rumors spread, dead, escaped, South America, suicide. No one knew. Gerda refused to believe he was gone. She kept writing letters to him, kept his clothes, refused to sign death papers. Even as the Allies took everything, she waited. She had 10 children to raise, 10. The Bormann name became a curse. Her kids were bullied, followed, interrogated. One of them, Martin Jr., turned to faith, became a Catholic priest, maybe trying to balance the sins of his father. But Gerda didn't get that peace. She fell ill with cancer in 1946 and died that same year at 46. Still waiting. It wasn't until 1972 that construction workers found bones buried near Loerder Station. DNA tests decades later confirmed it was Martin. He died the night he fled, likely by cyanide. Gerda never knew. She died trapped between loyalty and denial, haunted by a ghost that history had already buried. Ilse Hess, the devoted believer. Few women clung to Nazi faith as fiercely as Ilse Hess. Her husband, Rudolf Hess, had once been Hitler's right-hand man, the deputy Führer himself. But his story took a strange turn. In 1941, in the middle of the war, Rudolf flew solo to Scotland, claimed he wanted to broker peace. Hitler called him insane, a traitor. The British locked him up and never let him go. Ilse was left behind, humiliated but unbroken. She wrote endless petitions, letters, memoirs, insisting her husband wasn't mad, that he'd been on a divine mission for peace. After the war, Rudolf was sentenced to life at Nuremberg. Spandau prison became his tomb. For 40 years, he lived behind those walls. And Ilse? She waited. She was arrested briefly in 1945, but released soon after. Unlike others, she didn't hide. She went public, defending her husband, speaking to reporters, writing books. She called him a martyr of peace. When Rudolf was found dead in 1987, officially suicide, though conspiracy theories still swirl, Ilse refused to accept it. She said he was murdered, silenced. Until her death in 1995, she never renounced the Reich. For Ilse, defeat never happened. The war just paused. Emilie Schindler, the forgotten savior. Not every Nazi wife followed darkness. Some, very few, tried to fight it from within. Emilie Schindler, wife of Oskar Schindler, was one of them. She wasn't a public figure or a fanatic. She was simply a woman trying to survive and to save others. While Oskar used his factory to protect over 1,000 Jews, Emilie worked behind the scenes, cooking meals, hiding workers in her home, risking everything. After the war, they fled to Argentina. But Oskar's business ventures failed. He drank, gambled, and eventually abandoned her. Emilie was left alone, raising animals to survive in a foreign land. For decades, no one cared. The world celebrated Oskar, wrote books, made movies, but Emilie's name barely appeared. Only in the 1990s did her story emerge, too late to change her life. She died in 2001, poor, alone, but remembered at last. A rare light in a story of shadows. Lena Heydrich, the unrepentant widow. Lena Heydrich never apologized, never flinched. Her husband, Reinhard Heydrich, was called the Butcher of Prague. He chaired the Wannsee conference that planned the final solution. When Czech resistance assassinated him in 1942, Hitler unleashed hell. Whole villages wiped out in revenge. Lena became a widow at 31, but not a broken one. She was arrested after the war, interrogated, then released without charges. And she wasted no time rewriting history. In the 1950s, she published a book, My Life with a War Criminal. Except she didn't call him that. To her, Reinhard was a patriot, a visionary, a misunderstood hero. Even decades later, she told journalists that Hitler had good intentions. She remarried, ran a small hotel on the island of Fehmarn, and lived there quietly until 1985. Tourists drank beer on the same property once owned by the Heydrichs. Most had no idea. To the end, Lena refused shame. In her eyes, she was still the wife of a great man. The next generation, children of the Reich. The war didn't just destroy an empire. It destroyed bloodlines. The children of these women, the Goebbelses, the Bormanns, the Himmlers, grew up under a curse they didn't choose. Some changed their names. Some joined the church. Some spent their lives defending what their parents did. By the 1960s, a new Germany demanded answers. The younger generation wanted truth. Protests filled the streets. Books were written, and the myths these women had tried to protect began to unravel. The silence cracked. Documentaries like Schindler's List in 1993, Blind Spot in 2002, they forced the world to remember, to listen, to confront. And slowly, the stories of these wives resurfaced. Not as victims, not as villains, but as witnesses trapped in the ruins they helped build.